the other people who met Elvis and knew Elvis, I say that I hate them, but I really don't. I'm just so darn jealous.
Right.
You know? And if there's anybody to be jealous at the moment, it's this lady, because are you kidding me? You met him, he knew your name, he would mention your name, he wrote you, and we need to know all about that.
Okay.
So, Judy, what is your background? Where do you come from?
Okay, first of all, I want to say that it's such a pleasure and honor to be here with all of you. And as we all go through different countries, we don't know each other, and we love each other when we meet each other. And it's just an honor to be here. I thank Henrik for inviting me.
Oh, come on.
And I'm the one that had no luggage show up, so I'm now an employee of the Memphis Mansion, and it coordinated with what I wore. So
You
I'm
look
good to
beautiful,
go.
especially in that t-shirt.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I said I'm promoter. So I met, from a time from 1965 until 1976, I was really fortunate to see Elvis. And people say, oh, were you a groupie or did you follow Elvis? Did any of us set out to be where we are in Elvis? It's just, once you saw him one time, you wanted to see him the next time. And then you had another opportunity, and then you met fans and formed relationships, and you're going to Vegas, and then you're going the next time, and that's how it all happened. So in 1965, I went to Memphis with a couple of girlfriends. We only had a couple of days. And so we were there, and at that time, Uncle Vester, Elvis came out of the house with Priscilla. She had a little brownie camera in her hand, and they were taking pictures in December of the nativity scene. And Vester said, I can't take you up there, but I can take your camera up there and take a picture. Now, looking back, how wonderful that was, because I got the picture, and their pictures that Vester took were on their Christmas cards. So looking back, there's an Elvis experience there. Then I went back 3 years later on the Greyhound bus with my girlfriend. We spent a lot of time on the Greyhound bus, and we spent a month in Memphis. And I had to get a hotel, but after a few days I realized we couldn't afford to stay there, so I was looking for an apartment. And Uncle Vester remembered us from before, and it was really nice. He said, we can tell you're true fans. And they were so accommodating to us. And so he said, there's a lady that lives behind Graceland, and maybe she would let you stay with her. But they were out of town. Turns out it was Shirley Connell's mom and dad. And we later met them and said we would have loved to have had you here. But I got an apartment, no furniture on the floor, and we stayed there for months, slept on the pillow we brought on the bus and on our coats, and that was it. Uncle Vester gave us a pipe because there had been some robberies or whatever in that area, so I don't know that I would have ever done anything with that pipe, but he gave us a pipe for protection. And so every day we walked down to Graceland, and Uncle Vester would let us in the gates, and we'd sit in the guardhouse. And so Priscilla was pregnant, due with the baby any time, and so we met her the night before she had the baby and got a picture and talked to her. And we asked her, well, are you excited? And she said, we're both so excited every time I move. Elvis is there to catch me. You know, and so they were really excited. The next morning we came down to the gate, and Vester said Priscilla went to the hospital. And so that took a course of the next couple of days. Oh, well, when Lisa was born, the entire town was on fire. Everybody was talking about Lisa Marie Presley was born. 5:01, the time, you know, and all the newspapers were full of pictures of the baby. We went to the hospital and got to see her in the nursery, because she was in an open nursery toward the back. And then the day that they brought Lisa home was the 5th of February, 1968, and Uncle Vester let us stand inside the gate. Someone was up on the rock wall watching to see when the car came, and Vester's on the phone to find out when they're leaving the hospital. So we had it all coordinated. The first car that came in the driveway was filming out the back window for them as they came through the gate. Well, Vester let us make up paper that said, welcome home, Lisa and Priscilla, and we put it on the front gate, and then he put them on the trees going up the driveway. So when that car came in, this is the highway out here, so it's busy. So when that car came in, he shut the gate. And then Elvis's cars out here had to wait to get into, there was like a car length to get the car in. So it gave time for Elvis and Priscilla to see the pictures on the gate. And so then as they came through the gate, Elvis pulled the baby blanket back slowly as the car went through to show her off to us. And then you know all the other things that happened. They went up to the house, and you've seen the videos of them getting out of the car and so forth. And Vester said Elvis was so excited, he called I think Vester's wife called, and Elvis was trying to tell him that Cletus had wanted him to bring home a case of bread and a loaf of pop. He was so excited he got it all screwed up talking to Vester. He said Elvis is like an old woman trying to carry Lisa. He was so excited to hold her. So anyway, we spent the next day, Vester said, okay, you girls are going to meet Elvis. The next time he comes out, when he leaves, when he comes back, I won't open the gate till he comes, you guys get across the driveway. We were in the inside, but he drove. So usually he was gone several hours. Now you can picture this, if any of you were there, what this would be like. You know you're going to get to see him probably. You're maybe going to meet him. It's your lifelong dream. You never met him. You're shaking. He comes back 20 minutes later and we're just running all over the place. Where's our pens? And shaking. And so it must have been comical to Elvis because Vester left the gate shut until 3 girls ran across the driveway. And then he opened the gate and he was kind of smiling as he drove in. And so I had 2 books. One was a 5x7 book with maybe 10 5x7s. And they were candid pictures, which were rare back then. But I made those up in a book for Elvis. And then the other book was my book, which consisted of, at that time, about 100 pictures, candid pictures. So Vester said, Elvis would probably be interested in seeing this other book too. Now, anybody that ever met Elvis, I don't think they ever said anything intelligent to him when they met him. And so I gave him the first book, and then I tried to explain what I was doing with the other book, and Elvis thought it was for him. And I said, oh no, that was too expensive. I meant priceless. So he laughed and made a fool of myself. And so I asked Elvis, would he sign a picture and autograph it to my fan club? And he said, is that your club? And I said, yes it is. And he said, that's really a good one. Well, I thought he told that to everyone, of course, And he wrote, to the Kissing Cousins fan club, thank you for everything through the years. And as a fan, I look back now on my life during that time. I've now become Facebook friends with a lot of people, and one of them was Becky Yancey that worked with Graceland for 12 years. And I said, did Elvis, I always sent my newsletters, which you've seen his newsletters. These are my newsletters. And they're typed, and I hand wrote all of my letters and everything, but theirs are beautiful, But I put everything in there about the shows and what he said and so forth. But I put these newsletters out about 3 or 4 times a year. I sent them to Graceland, Colonel Parker's office in Tennessee, and then his home in LA and MGM. And I said to Becky, I said, did Elvis ever read those newsletters? Or the fan mail? And she said, yes, he did. When he came home, he came to the office many times. He read the letters, many of the letters. And she said he liked to read the fan club newsletters and keep up on what they were doing. So that really shows. She said, and I think this is so important for us to all know, she said, I believe that Elvis loved his fans more than any other entertainer has ever loved his fans. That's just a wonderful thing for all of us to know. So then Elvis started coming out horseback riding for the next, till we left on the 19th of February. So almost every day we see him out horseback riding. And I only had 2 rolls of Instamatic film because I had no money. We bought the apartment and went and got groceries, and that was it. And so Elvis came out horseback riding, and so we started taking pictures. One day he came over the side yard on this side, and it looked like the Rough Riders coming over the hill, and he said, "Okay, I'm taking over this damn gate." And so then he took off, and we went, and we were on the outside because a different guard was there. And he said, "Open the gate." He said, "I'll be right back." And I ran the horse for a minute, and he came back, opened the gate, signed autographs, and it was just wonderful. Then we took pictures over the next couple of days. And then at the end of the time that I was going to be there, there was a man that was a DJ, Jim Shira, that was from Florida, loved Elvis like all of us since really young. And he wanted to meet Elvis, and we had been there a month. And we were leaving the next day. Sylvester, we didn't know it, but he went up to the house and said, "Elvis, the girls are leaving tomorrow, and this DJ and his friend are there. They'd like to meet you. Could you go down to the gate?" So he came down on the golf cart and opened the gates. 45 minutes, everybody's talking to Elvis. I mean, we just couldn't believe it. We were just, everybody was talking to him and having fun. One thing that I realized, you could have 20 people talking to Elvis or seeing Elvis like this, and each one came away with a different story. It was like they were in their own separate bubble with him. So maybe he would have an experience and I would have an experience and say, "Well, that wasn't what I remember," but we all had like a little bubble around him, a precious memory we shared with him. So at the end of the time that we were there that night, he came over to Sandy and I and said, "Thank you for coming, and I hope you had a good time." Could you imagine? People think you're crazy for going to see Elvis, and he thanks you for coming all that way to see him. And so we left Memphis. Of course, we didn't know it. We had $1 left, and we went over to McDonald's and got 3 cheeseburgers. And so I didn't know it, but later, Elvis came back down. We were packing. Jim met Elvis. He had asked Elvis for some pieces of his clothing to give to the fans, raffle it off on his radio show. And he brought down several pieces of his clothing. We missed it, and Elvis handed out transistor radios to everybody. So, that was a missed opportunity. I learned early on, when I went to Vegas, I went the last 3 or 4 days because I didn't want to miss something if he was still there. So I usually went like for 5 or 6 shows the last couple of days. So that was '68. We found out he was going to be doing this TV special, and had a girlfriend that worked for RCA, and she got us tickets to go to the TV special. There was one on Thursday night, 2 shows on Thursday night, the sit-down show. The first one that we had tickets for, we weren't around the stage, and that area that was like stadium seats around it, it was separate, and we were sitting there. And so I did see him, but it was like so close but so far away because, we couldn't really get up close there. So Saturday night were the stand-up shows, and we got to be in there for the entire thing. And it's like I recently wrote about that experience, and I said it was like waking up in a dream that you dreamed your whole life as an Elvis fan. And everybody said, "Haven't you seen him perform?" Well, he hadn't performed. He only did the 2 shows in '61. So my whole time since I was 9 years old, I never saw him in person. And so when I walked in, Mr. Finkel said, "Here, sit here." And I was around the stage and right in the corner. And people say, "Well, why didn't people scream?" You heard those girls, that when he slid down in front of them, that they screamed. We didn't scream. I put my hand, put my hand over my face a lot of times trying not to scream. But we were afraid if we screamed, we'd be kicked out. This is a TV studio, So it was amazing. It was just absolutely amazing see him there, and you saw what he looked like. People say, what was it like? And I look at the videos of that, and all I can say is, oh, Elvis. You know, he was so, Elvis was 10 times, at least 10 times, more gorgeous in person than he ever was in a picture. And it was just an amazing experience. And when he did If I Could Dream, he did it in the black suit, and it was just so powerful to us to see it at that time. You know, we were so surprised when it was in the white suit when the show came out. But anyway, we got to see him. In between the takes, we got to see him do Tiptoe Through the Tulips and MacArthur Park and the whole thing with the My Boy, and they're adjusting his mic and trying to get the tracks ready, and he was just saying, it's getting embarrassing out here, you know. We're happy. You can stay out there as long as you want. We want to watch you, you know. So that was absolutely an amazing experience, and I never realized how I would be part of Elvis history. And through my times, their Christmas card, through Lisa being born, now I'm at the 68th special, and then the next year I went to Vegas for the opening of the 69 shows. And so I went the last 3 or 4 days. Shirley and her mom were there also. We sat at the same table for many of those shows. And in those days, if you told somebody you had a fan club for Elvis, they all looked at you like, these girls are going to be really weird, or, you know. They were the ones, when Elvis came out, we wouldn't do that because we had met him. We wouldn't run up on the stage. These people would, if you stood up, they ran down the table and they'd be sitting in your seat when you stood up, so to get a kiss or a scarf. So they were the crazy ones, not us. And so in '69, it was absolutely wild, those concerts. And I got my first kiss from Elvis. I never ever dreamed I'd ever get a kiss from Elvis, but he did Hey Jude and Yesterday. So he always, as we know, here was the stage, there were the microphones. The fans were over here, and as Elvis said one time, if you give those maitre d's enough money, they'll set you in a swing on stage with me. He wanted the fans to be around. So the high rollers were here in the middle, and at the very end they say, we have a reservation for dinner for so-and-so, and those high rollers would come in and sit down. So Elvis always went to the perimeters of the stage, and he would start, as you see, and that's the way it is, he'd shake hands, go along and kiss people and stuff. So this particular show, he started doing Hey Jude. So instead of going along the stage, he walked from the center right to me. And I was petrified, and I knew he was coming right to me, and I wanted to run. I just thought, get up and leave. He's coming right here. And so I don't know how to explain that. But he came over, and he took my hand and helped me stand up. And he went, mwah, just like that. And I was just blown away. And the next thing I knew, it was listening to him saying, are you lonesome tonight? And I was just crying because I just couldn't believe that happened. So then we went through, I saw 10 out of 14 of Elvis's engagements in Vegas. But in 1970, if you ever went to any of those Vegas shows, you met Emilio, and Emilio assigned you another maitre d' who would walk you back and forth through the room as you tipped him to get down to a seat down in front, hopefully. And I gave him, so we figured out how many shows we could do, and financial. We had up to 10 to 12 girls in our rooms, and anybody that got a bed got no pillow. If you slept on the floor, you got a pillow. And one girlfriend came from LA on the weekend, and we rented out the bathtub. So it was like a zoo in our room. But we had so much fun. And people from all over the world, we'd all meet for dinner after the show. It was like this. And so, what I want to say, in '70, we were in line for the show, and the maitre d', when we were figured out, we liked going to the midnight shows because they were usually wilder and really fun. So we were behind the line for the dinner show, and we usually had our photo albums and we're showing people pictures and trading and stuff. And then the maitre d' came out right before the dinner show, and he said, we have a reservation for 2 for dinner. Well, we weren't going to go because we were going to the midnight show. And he said, he came by and he said, you blew it. Those were ringside. Well, we said, if that ever happens again, we're going to go for it. And he came back by and we said, we'll go. And he sat us right dead in center. My girlfriend Judy, Cherry, she met Elvis lots of times up at the Truesdale house. She also met him backstage in Vegas that year in the middle of the month. You may have seen that picture of her. She's got her arms around Elvis, kissing him, and he had that blue suit on. So then after that, every show, and we had this much money allotted, we ended up spending all that money that we had saved and more just to be able to get those seats. I mean, they seated us right in front. And when Elvis would come out, he would look around at the stage to see people he knew. And so we'd always get a wink or a smile, put his finger like that and smile at us. And every other show we'd get a kiss or a scarf or whatever. And that's the way it is. You saw how he would stand when he went to shake hands, and he always had that stance so he didn't get pulled into the audience. So I got in 1971, I was sitting third person in from the stage like these tables are, the third person in. And he was just kissing hands, just shaking hands and stuff. So I put my hand out. He stood on the table and pulled me over and kissed me. And now the spotlight's on him, so you just can't even imagine what that was like. So that was my second kiss that I got. And I read Linda Thompson's book, and she nailed it. Because I always thought, what it was like to kiss Elvis's lips. And she said it was like 2 giant puffy marshmallows. And that was so true. It was. And then I went through in 1971, he started doing that 2001 A Space Odyssey theme. And I was there for that. And after the show was on and partly through the show, he said, I want to run that song again, play it again. And he turned around with his back to the audience and said, now you've all seen these pictures, but it was new to us. He turned around with his back to the audience, and he turns around and like he's directing the band, and he turns around and has this 8 mask on. And I mean, we all just died laughing, and then Charlie turns around and he's got one on. And so that was fun. And in the beginning, can I have a t-shirt?
Sure you can.
In the beginning, the shows, thank you. He didn't give away that many scarves. I know in 1971 there was 1 scarf per show. So if you walked out of the showroom with one of those scarves, it was like winning a trophy. And that engagement, 3 of us got scarves and have our pictures taken with it. How much time do I have so I know how?
You have a few minutes. Still have a few minutes.
Okay. Because I don't want to overdo my time, and there's a lot of things there.
I think we want to hear what Judy's saying, right? You know what? While you take your breath, let me just say a few things here that I think is very important. So, you get to Memphis, you meet him at the gate, you do this and that, and you get your first show. Okay, the 68 comeback. Okay, I take that. I haven't seen him live, so I have to live with 68 comeback, okay? I go to sit on the stage, you meet him again, you get 2 kisses. I do not care too much about the kisses. But I see a few of the girls here was like, when you said that. And so, hey, it's amazing, but keep going. I just want you to you know,
Okay.
I
Catch
cannot.
up.
But no, let me say something else that I
Yeah.
really dig what you said was the way you were fighting to get things. You were saving you money. You were doing
Oh,
all
yeah.
this, and I don't think any of us had the idea how it was to following Elvis, traveling from town to town, spending
yeah.
all you had. You know,
And then
it's
in
just
my-
like it's.
In my-
I would do the same thing. Can we do it tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, being here is kind of like being in Las Vegas, you know, with all the fans. You know, we were all just, you know, it was so much fun. And so in 1970, Judy Cherry got backstage, and you know those classic pictures of Elvis taken in the black and white suit with the ruffle, that we all love that pictures. Well, they met him when they were doing the rehearsals for That's the Way It Is. When he came out of the parking garage after the rehearsals, they met him there, and then they went up to the house, and then Elvis went into the house, came back out, and signed autographs. So she took a picture of him, and it's just close up, and you may have seen it, and it's just him signing autographs with his shirt on. Well, I didn't know it, but she had that picture printed in two 11x14 pictures and matted. And she brought it backstage when she met Elvis. And she said, Elvis, would you, she had her sign, and she said, Elvis, would you sign this for Judy Palmer? And he said, she has a fan club in Washington, right? So all these years, I never even assumed, I mean, that he would have known me or my name or my anything. I mean, I look back on it now. And because you always met somebody that said, Elvis knew me, Elvis talked to me. I never wanted to be that, you know, because after I met Elvis the first time, I didn't need to meet him 50 times. I got to see him. I gave him pictures from the audience. I got scarves, but I wanted the next fan to be able to have that experience because, anyway, that's just my take on it. But so.
I wish I would have been with you back then.
Yeah.
I think I maybe even would have taken a kiss. I'm not saying,
Yeah.
but
That's like Elvis in Pennsylvania. So she gave me that picture for my birthday. He wrote, Happy Birthday, Judy, Elvis Presley.
Oh, okay.
And so she gave that to me in September at her house. I was in LA. So then I stayed in LA for about a month, and I got to meet him in October outside his house, and I so there's some pictures, and I know you've seen these pictures. I didn't do this book until 2008, but you know, I always say to people now, because we're all digital and everything, I had no money. I ran around on the form of transportation was a Greyhound bus. I blew up 2 cars going down to LA one time just to try to see Elvis in 1966. Because all my friends were seeing him. So we got a car going down, my girlfriend's dad's car, and we got up in the mountains of Redding, California, and blew the car up. All this transmission fluid went out of it. So here we are, we had to ditch the car. It was an older car. But we had to lose that car, and her sister decided, well, I want you girls to go, so she gave us one of her cars to go to LA. We get down there, we're on our way back, we're in the middle of the state in Tulare, and that car blew up. So we blew up 2 cars just to get to see Elvis. I had to take the Greyhound bus back home again. So, anyway, and where was I?
while you're looking for that picture, let me say, you just look for that.
Yeah.
Judy actually brought some of these books with her. They haven't arrived yet because she didn't get
My luggage.
your luggage yet. So it is probably on its way. But I promise you this, Judy, we will sell some of your books. And we will do it like this. Don't say anything, please.
Yeah.
We do it like this, that if anybody wants to buy your book, they can pre-order it at ours. And then you can sign them at home, and I will take care of the shipping here, so everybody's happy.
Okay.
What do you
Great.
think about that? Is that okay with you?
So this is me in the audience of the '68 special, because people are always asking where I was, and I'd have to say I'm the girl my hands over my face a lot.
No, but what I like is just to remember.
Right there.
Yeah, you're right there in the corner. She has a blue dress, but there's another lady.
There's a young girl in a blue dress, but I had the Sheriff fly glasses on that Sheriff.
Oh yeah, you got your glasses on. So
Yeah.
when you look at the 68 comeback, in the corner, the right corner, what's the right corner?
On the
you
scale
can't say
of the
that's like 4 corners. But look at one of the corners, and you see Judy with glasses on and a blue dress, and you know what? I would even have been wearing a dress if I had to do that. to see Elvis. That's wrong with you. That's wrong with you. I don't want to tell that. That's how far I would go. But you know what? It's killing me. You know, it's killing me. But it's great. Don't you think it's great to hear a fan like the rest of us being able to go that far? It's amazing. It's crazy. Judy, you're crazy. But in a good way. We love it.
Everybody always thought I was crazy, especially people in my hometown. Till Elvis came to Spokane in 1973, and when they heard he put on the most beautiful concert, he did too, but the 8 o'clock show, it was so beautiful, and everybody raved about that concert for months, and I thought now they could see what I was thinking about here. Also in that concert in 73, I went to both shows, and it was really nice because Charles said that the Colonel's office, they made sure that I think the first 16 rows or something were blocked out, and they were only sold 10 tickets to each person. And those people were the people that stood in line to get the tickets. I spent from 6 o'clock at night till 10 in the morning. We gave out numbers to everybody so we could go to the bathroom and everything. But we stood in line to get those tickets, and they made sure that we were the ones that got it. So that was really cool. So in the 73 show, I made an 11 by 14 or 16 by 20 print of my picture of him from 1972. I made it up and I put it on an easel in between the shows. This one. Oops, sorry. I put it on an easel. And so I asked Mr. Diskin, could he take it back and give it to Elvis? So between the shows, he got it. And then during the show, he was drying his face on a towel from the hotel that he was staying at. And he went over and he was doing Johnny Be Good over here, and I was right there. And he was standing here, and the instrumental was on, and he put the towel all over his face, and he turned and looked right at me and winked and smiled and threw me the towel like, thank you. And so that was a pretty cool moment there.
Yeah, I guess. You
so
know?
Just to get on a more somber note, this is, my mother was a credit manager of a department store in Spokane. And in 1971, 3 men came in and they shot her, and she died instantly. And so that was one of the reasons why I had to give up my club, because I had brothers and sisters and my dad, and I stayed home and took care of everybody and so forth. So, you know, so I get this card in the mail about a month after that. And I knew a lot of the fans that hung out down at Hillcrest, you know, Elvis's Truesdale house. They would call me, tell me if they met Elvis. They send their negatives and pictures, and we print them all. But this card came in the mail from Priscilla and Elvis, and I believe Elvis signed for both, because it's not Priscilla's handwriting. It says Priscilla and Elvis Presley. And I just thought, you know, it meant a lot to my dad. It meant a lot to me. But for my dad and the people that thought I was a crazy Elvis fan. And then I also got one from Colonel Parker's office. And I think back on it now because the fans told Elvis that I lost my mom. And then also the Colonel's office knew. And I relate back to Elvis lost his own mom. And I'm a fan club president, so he could identify as to have known me and known the loss of I would have experienced. Now I can see that now. Back then I didn't, but I was thrilled to get the card. So that just shows how much he cared, you know. So then I took pictures in Vegas. This is the first time, when you have pictures in Vegas of Elvis, if you see the ones from '69, Elvis is this tall in the frame. And so I got a job in a camera store, and I started going to concerts locally to try and develop how to take pictures. Now we have digital. Back then we had little Instamatic cameras. Well, they came out with 400 ASA slide film, so that's what I started taking the pictures on. And I developed, you had to shoot at 125th of a second and f2.8 so that it would stop the action. So I started taking a few in 71, but you know, it's petrified. If you got caught with your camera, they would take the camera away, compensate this film, and you may lose your camera too. So in 72, there was a seating mix-up, and they put us dead center right in front of Elvis. Now, when I went to Vegas, we're wearing silver hot pants, all these fancy little dress, nothing like this anymore. But we dressed up, we had nice outfits. Okay, I had a tooled bucket bag, leather bucket bag that was popular in the 70s, and it had a strap, and then it kind of went like this, and it was kind of a heavy bag. When you think you're walking in with a bag like that and a pair of hot pants on, nowadays they think that was suspicious, but nobody said anything at that time. So that's where I carried my cassette tape recorder and my 35mm camera and a telephoto lens. So then I set the microphone on the table and put a towel, napkin over the top of it. So we had all those shows that we recorded while we were there, and then we were trading with each other for the shows that we weren't at either, as well. So I took this, so we had quite a network going on, and so in 72, these are the pictures that I got. I went over to Virginia Coon's house. I'd stayed with her over in LA, and when I got this film back, we darn near fainted, you know. And these were some of the first pictures that anybody, Keith Alverson and all the famous photographers now, they came after, and they could shoot with flash and so forth. But back then, nobody knew how to get those pictures. So when I did that, Sandy Pichon was a huge fan and a dear friend. And she had a fan club also, and she said, "Oh my gosh, how did you get those pictures?" So it went around the world, 400 ASA film at f2.8 at 125th of a second, and now all the Elvis fans get to take pictures like that. So that was pretty exciting little moment in history. So I got those pictures here. This picture has been on a Kung Fu magazine. I never got credit for any of this, but it was fun to know that I took pictures. It's on a Kung Fu magazine. A year after I took the picture, I was in LA, and they used to sell iron-on things to go on t-shirts. My picture was there, and I go, "Oh, I took that picture," and they go, "Oh, that's a nice one." And I went, that's my picture, you know, but I got to get the iron-on, and it was such an honor when I went to Tupelo 10 years ago, and I went through the museum, and at the very end where they show some of Elvis's costumes in Vegas, that picture's printed in a life-size print, in a black and white poster print. I also have one of my horse pictures in the barn tour at Graceland. I have a picture of Priscilla that I took, and she has it in the museum by the white car that Elvis gave her. And the first time that I went back to Memphis in 2008, and I walked in to the museum, the car museum, and I gotta tell this really quick. In 70, when we saw him outside his house, I met him 3 times just to talk to as he drove in. Okay, so I took these pictures, and everybody else goes, "Well, he's got such an intense look on his face here." Well, I had an article from the newspaper, and the newspaper was from the first tour that he did after Vegas. It says, "Screaming fans love Elvis." It's dark in there, you know, and I shot this flash, and I gave him that article, and he said, "Could I take this in the house?" And he said, "I don't, what am I gonna say? No, you can't have it, you know." So I gave him the article, and he later asked Charlie, could ask me if he could keep it for his scrapbooks. So a little thing like that would mean something to him. So then this day, we were in 1970 in October. Carol and I went up to the Truesdale house, and our Hillcrest house. It was in Truesdale Estates. And we went up in the afternoon, and we thought, great, nobody's going to be up there today, and we'll maybe get to see Elvis, and there won't be a lot of people around. And Carolyn mentioned, gee, Elvis hasn't had a new car in a long time. So as we drove in the development, we were all by ourselves going up the winding road up there, and then this car pulls in behind us, and we thought, darn, something else is going to be up here. That car pulled in the driveway, and we were there when it was delivered. And so it was really something, because for about 3 hours, we got to watch Elvis come in and out and talking about the car. The car was leaking oil, and he goes, "What did you know? It's my car." And so when I went back in 2008 and I saw the steps there, I was pretty emotional. And that picture was on the placard. And so when I went back in 2008 and I did pretty okay going through the house tour. It was odd because when Elvis was there, the gates weren't open. And now they were open. But when I got done with the tour and I went across the street and they had some of the jumpsuits, I just had tears streaming out of my face. I didn't plan it, I didn't mean to. It's just that I saw him in all those jumpsuits. And the memory just flooded through, and that's, anyway. So that's a memory.
Listen, we could talk for hours, and you know what? We had you on the program, then you called us.